up to this point in your academic career, how many of you would say what you've been taught about science is that an experiment is when your teacher gives you a handout with a series of instructions, you execute the series of instructions step by step, and that's how you do an experiment. The success of your experiment is entirely dependent on your ability to simply just follow instructions. Agree? And you guys are like, please, we're great experimenters because I can follow directions with the best of them. Accurate?
Yeah.
I like you, and I'm convinced you can follow directions, which is why you're in this room. That's not science. That's following directions. You got to see some cool stuff, I'm sure, right? And some of you are like, yeah, I guess. Really, I was just following directions because that's what I was told to do, and I'm a great listener.
A teacher I had before said that a lab is something where they give you a set of instructions and most of the materials, and you're supposed to figure out yourself what happens, but they give you stuff with an experiment, and then you're starting fresh and you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, experiments. That's what we do in science, right? We do experiments, not labs. Labs are what you have a great deal of familiarity with, and a lot of times your teachers did this not to fault them. It is not their fault. The reason that they taught you that's what science is because if they don't give you specific instructions, some of it is pretty dangerous. Like there's some stuff that I would just not give you open free access to and be like, here, experiment with this. Careful, it explodes. That's clearly just a bad idea. So I do want you to understand is what I did to you while I was out was not give you a lab to complete, but rather ask you to think about what an experiment looks like. And a lot of you probably, there's a handful of you who might have done a science fair in the past where you had to design your own experiment, but most of you are like, yeah, I just Googled science buddies and just followed some directions. Accurate? Yeah. So I don't want to do that here. You're too old for that. You're independent thinkers, and so long as I can read your experimental designs in advance of you doing the experiment, I can prevent you from injuring yourself. Because I'll read it and know immediately what it is that you can do that would injure yourself. That is what we're aiming for here, is not what science is not a cookbook lab, not a series of guesses, not following instructions. Is it important that you follow instructions? Absolutely, but that's not science. Science is making observations about the world around you and then asking questions about it. We talked about my friends, the redheads in here, right? Ask a question about the world around you and then research it. And this is why I asked you last week what it means to be scientific. Because if it's scientific, then it might be science. So we make an observation. And after we made our observation about the number of redheads in my honors biology class, what did we do after that? We thought they were smart, but then we did research. Because I had asked a question, I made an observation, I asked a question, and then I was like, well, that's not a very good question. I should probably research that. So I did some research. And doing that research led me to ask a better question. Now here's what's difficult about science. I have a sneaking suspicion you're all kind of the personality who really enjoys being correct. You're like, I am a master at knowing the correct answer. I am a master at always having the correct answer or knowing how to get it. I do not like situations in which I do not know the correct answer. P.S. I hate being wrong. Sound familiar? Here's the thing about science. You have to be comfortable saying you don't know the answer. You have to be comfortable saying, I'm willing to be wrong. Those are really hard, especially for some of us who may have some foolish pride. That's difficult. Asking a better question means you didn't know everything when you started. And you are going to really hate me for this because you're going to design an experiment. I'm going to be like, that's not a good question. And you're going to be like, what do you mean? I don't know the answer to it. Well, right. Just because you don't know the answer doesn't mean it's a good question. It doesn't mean that it's a question worth asking. Do some research. You're going to find a better question. That's what we want, is the better question. After you ask a better question, what do? So you've made an observation, you've done some research, you've asked a better question. Make a hypothesis. And I know you know what a hypothesis is not. What is a hypothesis not? Oh, good. Excellent. Guessing is for people who are comfortable with guessing. That's not us. We don't guess here. That's why usually if you ask me to guess, I always say something like, if I had to hazard a guess, it's painful. We don't like doing it. So what is it if it's not an educated guess? What is it? I'll give you that moment to flip back and find out.
A prediction about a relationship based on an observation of prior knowledge.
And if that's what a hypothesis is, did we talk about how we write one? Is there a particular format for a hypothesis?
If, then, because.
I'm going to give you two hypotheses. And I'm going to ask you with your partner to determine which is better. 1, 2, or are they about the same? So I'm going to write them out for you. Hypothesis 1. Hypothesis 2. Which do we prefer? 1 or 2? Here's everyone's favorite question we'll lead tomorrow.